everybody. Welcome back. We're so glad to have all of you at another Justia webinar presented by Justia Connect. Today, we're going to be here talking with you a little bit more about ChatGPT, Google's newest release, Bard, and AI tools for writing your law firm marketing content. So before we get things started, I do want to remind all of you that this webinar is intended to be a little bit more interactive than some of our previous webinars, which means we want input from you. There will be some polls at different points, but also in addition to that, I encourage you to submit your questions throughout the presentation. Now we'll probably hold them for Q&A at the end, but you are welcome to send us your questions at any time as they come up. And that way we'll have them kind of on our list and know which ones we're going to be able to get to today. Now, before I introduce myself, I do want to introduce our fabulous behind the scenes host today, Lavinia. She is helping with some of the technical parts of this, but she will also be there at the end for this question and answer session to help share the questions that you submitted with myself and my co-presenter, Tim. Now, if you don't know me yet, I'm going to introduce myself officially today for probably the first time in depth, but I've done this before. If you give me one moment, there it is, my beautiful slide. I am Marina Wilson. I'm a member of Justia's marketing team. Previously, I've hosted some of these webinars for you, but now I'm here to share some insights about law firm marketing when it pertains to AI. I'm an attorney as well and a member of the Louisiana State Bar Association. I attended the University of Georgia for my bachelor's degree, where I got a major in consumer journalism, and then got my JD from the LSU Paul M. Hebert Law Center. And then I'll hand things over to Tim so he can go ahead and introduce himself as well.
Okay, and I'm Tim Stanley. I'm the CEO of Justia, and I'm also a lawyer, member of the California State Bar, and also a programmer, and was at one point in time in a PhD program at Stanford, but dropped out to start Fine Law, and now working on Justia with free law projects and also doing stuff for law firms as well.
So I'm going to go ahead and we'll kind of dive right into the content we have for you guys today in light of that. Oh, I put too far. I'm going to let Tim kind of give us the outline.
Yeah. So we're gonna run through ChatGPT. We're going to talk about these large language models, AI in general, as well as Google's Bard. We're going to start off with an introduction. There'll be the beginning part here. Then we have a brief discussion about how these large language models work, how they're really fancy autocomplete in certain ways. Then sort of the core part of this webinar will be how to use ChatGPT for law firm marketing. And the same could apply to Bard, but I think most people will probably be using ChatGPT right now, at least. Then we'll discuss some issues with ChatGPT: accuracy, copyright, ethics. There's a bunch of issues that are going to pop up here. Then we'll go into Google rankings and AI content and how that's working with Google. And there's quite a few things that we want to discuss on that. And then just a general endpoint here about talking about Google Bard versus Microsoft Bing and the OpenAI ChatGPT combo. So this is the run through on it. And for there, I'll let Marina take it away.
Yes, no, of course. So some of you have heard of ChatGPT and Bard and AI. Some of you have not. Basically, here's what happened is that they quietly released ChatGPT a couple of months ago. Now, I don't know how quiet it is because ChatGPT ended up grabbing lots of headlines. We had people talking about how brilliant it is, how weird it is at the same time. You've got people talking about how ChatGPT is going to outdo Google or spell doom for search engines as we know it. You've got people who are worried about it being problematic. We've got people talking about the ethics of AI, people talking about how the platform lied to them. There was some discussion about it passing different college exams, business school exams, law school exams. Some debate about whether or not it's cheating for students to use it in their different endeavors. Is it a tool like a calculator? Is it cheating? There's definitely discussion going on about that too. And then one of the flashiest headlines that probably caught the attention of lawyers was when ChatGPT-4 passed the bar exam. Now that is an interesting take. A couple of things to keep in mind there is that even though it is a new product, ChatGPT has gone through different iterations and evolved already. So, when it came out and those first headlines were kind of breaking news about this new robot friend software that would write for you, a lot of that was looking at ChatGPT 3.5. ChatGPT 3.5 did not do well on the multiple choice NBE questions when it was fed through them. It failed. But then ChatGPT 4, which is the improvement of ChatGPT, comes out, just a couple of months ago. And lo and behold, it supposedly passes the MBE multiple choice portion, at least, with the 90th percentile. And so there's definitely a lot to be aware of there as it's going through. So as I mentioned, they've got these different things. OpenAI has continued to evolve and show new models, new versions of ChatGPT for us. And so there's a couple of things. The basic ChatGPT is free. Anybody can join. I myself joined after Justia, kindly clued me in on this a couple of months back and went ahead and started playing with that free version of ChatGPT. That's run by ChatGPT 3.5. Now you've got ChatGPT Plus. So for $20 a month, you can get better access to the platform. You can also use ChatGPT 4, switch back and forth between 3.5 and 4. So definitely those different models are there. Of course, 4 is a bit more effective and efficient. As you can see, kind of going through these and their different ratings on different metrics, they perform differently. And so 4 is kind of the better of the options. And so if you're going to use ChatGPT, we often recommend that you just get that plus, use ChatGPT 4, because it gives you better results than 3.5. And this next slide is just going to be also an illustration of that. So you come in, we ask ChatGPT 3.5 to tell us a little bit about contributory negligence and comparative negligence. And so it does, it goes through, it gives you an answer. It convincingly answers your question with quite a blog post. Then, you come in and you ask it to do it a little bit differently. Use 4, ask it the same question again, and you get something that's structured better, that has more content to it, that has more information, and is arguably, maybe not even arguably, clearly, a better piece of writing that it has generated for you. So that's just something to keep in mind. And remember, it was 4, not 3.5, that was out there passing the bar exam, apparently. So in addition to that, you've got other companies getting into this. This is really moving into different spaces in, our lives. And there's a lot of a bigger discussion to have about that. But one of those spaces is Bing. So Microsoft's default search engine has incorporated ChatGPT. And so Bing is using GPT-4 in the new Bing, if you will. Now, you do have to use Edge to use it. But as you can see, it works very similar to ChatGPT. And Tim will jump into more the nuts and bolts in this in a little bit. But again, you give it prompts, you ask it questions, you give it commands, you tell it what you would like for it to do, and it spits an answer back for you through Bing. Now, these are slightly shorter answers than what you would probably get out of the OpenAI ChatGPT platform itself, but it's powered, again, by that technology. As I mentioned, you do have to use Microsoft Edge to do that, even if you're on a Mac like I am right now. So, sometimes maybe installing the Edge browser on your Mac is a little bit more difficult than using something like Chrome or Safari, but it's out there for you to use Bing if you'd like to. And then you've got Google, who's coming into this fight. So not to be left behind, Google's AI recently premiered. Within the past 2 or 3 weeks, I got the email that said, join the waiting list for Bard. And so I requested my spot. We've gotten in. Tim got in as well. And so now Google has Bard, which is their AI that is also doing things similarly to ChatGPT. You're giving it prompts and AI is giving you back responses. Like the screenshot says, Bard can outline your blog post about mocktails. It can outline blog posts about other things too, quite obviously, but it's there for you. And so this is what Bard looks like. Again, you come in, you give it the prompts, it tells you a little bit more about itself. When you give Bard a prompt and you get back responses, you can, just like ChatGPT, just like Bing, use different tones. It gives you the different options to cycle through. With some of the other ones, you might need to prompt it. Now answer that question for me as if you were a law student, or answer that question for me as if you were a law professor. But Bard is doing the same thing. It's giving you back an output. And we'll get some more in the weeds later about whether Bard is better or ChatGPT is better. But the point here is that this is growing and different companies are indeed getting involved in this. So now you've got 3 automatic options that you can scroll through when you use it automatically on Bard. Here are different options for the prompt you gave me, the response. So, you're here. These are kind of the 3 different ways you can access those platforms. Chat.openai.com, that is the original ChatGPT for you, or where you would go when you upgrade to ChatGPT Plus. You've got Bing, which is a little bit longer of a link, but that bing.com/new And again, remember, you have to be in Microsoft's browser Edge to do that. And then you've got Google Bard at bard.google.com. So these are all different AI options that you might be interested in exploring when looking at generating your content.
Right. And so, yeah, at its core, right now, we recommend that people try all three. I think that, we'll run through stuff today, but what's going on right now with these large language models and how they're tying into just sort of writing and different things. Granted, there are issues. I mean, we'll cover some of the issues, but this is going to be everywhere. This is going to be in when you use Microsoft Office products, or if you're using Google Workspace, it's going to be in almost every single product. Is going to be sort of tied in to sort of, allowing you to use these language models to help you write faster. So, right now, I personally would recommend that you sign up for the plus version of ChatGPT. I think it's worth the $20 a month. You can cancel it after a month if you don't want to use it. You're a little limited on what you can do for ChatGPT 4 in terms of the number of prompts or queries that you can make. But Bing also uses it, slightly modified version of it. And Google Bard, all right, this isn't the best right now. It's the very beginning step. But don't expect this to be don't expect Google Bard to be what you currently see a month, 2 months from now. Their whole AI teams across the alphabet are coming together. It's going to be really good. They're good at this stuff. They just need a little bit of time to put something up a little bit better for folks to use. And there'll be other companies too. We're sure Amazon will come out with stuff. Apple will probably do some things. There's a lot of folks that'll be doing things. So, we recommend right now, try all three. I mean, just do it. Even if you don't like it, even if you think this is horrible, you should just do it, because it's going to be a reality soon enough on almost everything that you use. All right. Let me, at this part, let me sort of quickly go through how ChatGPTs and large language models work. Now, I'm not going to go into full detailed computer science world here. I mean, I'm just going to give a sort of a brief overview, but I'll give you a good article you can read. And there's like 8,000 YouTube videos you can watch if you want to watch some YouTube videos on it. First, the way to think of this is that, these large language models get this huge sort of corpus of text and other sort of content, other data. And it goes through, I mean, like the web, the whole web could be a data set, right? All the books ever published could be a data set. All your chats, your email could be a data set. Anything that sort of involves sort of text interactions here that these models can use. And then it looks at all these models and it sort of figures out how words and different things relate to each other, so that when you start typing something, it can sort of produce an autocomplete, right? It can sort of put in the next word and the next word. Then separately, you can train this obviously with people, can go through and say, well, this is a good response, not a good response. And I know that OpenAI did a lot of that. A lot of that stuff was already done in Kenya and different places, different countries as well, just to try to make sure things were good. And that's fine. You can use people. You could also use another LLM model if you want to actually do your training. So you can use one model to train another model, which is what some of the guys at Stanford did for Alpaca. Separately, you might train it on sort of smaller or separate corpuses of text and try to focus in on that. And you've seen that going on right now. Lexus has announced some stuff, Fast Case text that we're doing some stuff that's more legally focused, and sort of focus in on their own corpuses of text, outside of the sort of the larger data models that ChatGPT or sort of larger data content sets that ChatGPT is using for you when you go use the site. How does it work itself? All right. This is basically like a supercharged autocomplete. So you type in a prompt, you hit response, right? You send it over to ChatGPT. It takes the words that you have and it says, looking at those words and sort of that sequence, it puts in a word, and then it might put in another word, and then it puts another word. But it's using all this data that it has to try to figure out what the next word is. And it's doing that word by word. It's not going through, okay, well, this is how I would, put together a web page. I'm going to have an intro, a conclusion, a bunch of different paragraphs. It's not doing that. It's going word by word to create it. At some point, it's going to end it. And normally it ends it with some sort of conclusory statements and things like that. And you could have different settings on it, but you can have some randomness put in, right? So It might take the one, like, the best thing about AI is its ability to learn. Okay, let's say that's the most likely one to show up in terms of database. It might choose that. But if you add some randomness, it might choose something different. And so the autocomplete won't always be the same. So it's one of those things that as you go through it and you regenerate different pages or things using ChatGPT, you'll see that they're different almost every time, right? There's a parameter if you're using the API that you could set, so it would be the same every time. You set it, no randomness, and would just take the next word at the highest probability. But it has some built-in randomness, and that's kind of like to try to make it like people. People have built-in randomness when they talk, right? And when they do conversations. So, I might put John Jay in, you might get something like John Jay, College of Criminal Justice, first base coach, Florida Marlins, baseball season's coming up. Chief Justice, United States, and, a longer paragraph. And it can write longer stuff. And it has some stuff built in right now to sort of push it towards more conversational and slightly longer responses. So whenever you put something to ChatGPT, it seems to sort of add some stuff, sometimes stuff that's even outside the question you're asked or even the statement. So if I just put John Jay in there without even I didn't ask who was John Jay, just John Jay, it's going to take that and sort of say, well, I see John Jay, they're probably asking me who he was. And that's probably going to be, they probably want to know about the Supreme Court justice, not the first base coach for the Marlins, right? And they don't know my personal preferences, but that's fine. It has this part here. And that's fine. And here's a paragraph, right? There are a few paragraphs about John Jay using GPT-4. So I put it in again. And this time it came back and told me about John Jay, but it gave me a list of 6 items. And I put it in again. All right, we're back to paragraphs. That's fine. Put it again. This time I have some paragraphs and 4 list items. Put it again. We're back to paragraphs. Put it again. This time I have 5 list items. It's not, that was the same prompt. And these were clean sort of ChatGPT sessions each time. Different answers every time. And the reason is it's doing the randomness. So as each word is coming from a random choice. So the key thing here is that you need to understand, or hopefully understand, that it's giving you back an answer that's using all this sort of called knowledge or sort of data that it has from all these web pages or books or whatever else. And it's trying to give you something that makes sense by looking at what the probabilities, what the next word would be. But it will not, because of the randomness, it will come up with different answers each time. Sometimes randomness is good. It makes it conversational, right? Sometimes randomness is not good, like when you want a citation to a court case, right? That's not good. And that's still random. So we'll talk more about accuracy and things in a bit, but this gives you an overview of how it works. This is coming from the Stanford Alpaca folks, but sort of gives you an idea what the answers and stuff were leading to. People were rewriting stuff, creating, generating things, just to get an idea where prompts go towards. And it's a beautiful, colorful picture, but it's also sort of how it works. What are people sort of doing with these large language models and things? All right. It's not, what's going on right now with ChatGPT is changing practically every week. So last week, they came out with plugins, right? And this is good. This is good because ChatGPT is good at certain things, but not good at other things. Like it's not good at not really. It's good at comping answers, but it's not good at producing answers. So they're allowing people to add plugins into ChatGPT, and they're really pushing this. So I would say I would say all, but most developers are trying to do something with plugins in ChatGPT. I know we are, so I'm sure lots of other folks are too. And they do have some plugins that are coming in, and you can, they're not giving, then it's not out for everybody yet in terms of the general ChatGPT plus usage, but some folks are getting some access to it, and obviously you can get access to produce plugins as well. So here's one from Wolfram, who does Mathematica, and those guys that do that company. Out of Urbana-Champaign. And so they've added a plugin for ChatGPT. And this is good because this will make ChatGPT really good at math, right? And they have, there's lots of other information there too that they have. But this would be the type of plugin that would sort of give more structured data and, better computational functionality that you might not get in the general ChatGPT autocomplete. All right. So that's a brief overview of it. I know that's pretty quick, but I think hopefully you get the basic idea. Word by word autocomplete using statistics. If you want to really understand it, this, the Wolfram blog has a great post on it. So if you go to j.st, just a shortcut, how ChatGPT, all right, go there, read this post. It's a little bit technical, but it's readable by attorneys. I think it's not so in the weeds, that's not understandable. But I would go and check this part out. Obviously, there's a lot of YouTube videos on it, but I think this post will really explain it to you in sort of maybe more detail than you want, but it'll give you a good sense of what's going on. And so that you really understand, what is it that you're actually seeing when these sort of neural nets are producing these autocompletes. Oops. Back up here. Sorry about that. Okay. With that, I hand it back over to Maria. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, of course, it's all good. So kind of a threshold issue before we really dive into how you can use ChatGPT for your marketing is that, your pet is probably spinning with all these different possibilities. And we touched a little bit on this in our How to Write Like the Best Legal Writers webinar, if you were there, about the potential for using ChatGPT for legal documents, right? Motions, briefs, demand letters. There's a lot to unpack there, a lot of different concerns to keep in mind, a lot of different considerations. And that's not the focus of this webinar. So we're not going to dive into that. The focus here really is on that legal marketing content, the content that you can use for blog posts, websites, all of that good stuff. So if you're thinking about marketing and how you can use ChatGPT for marketing, one of the first things you can is to just get more marketing ideas, which may seem kind of self-explanatory, but you can ask ChatGPT and you can say, hey, I need ideas on how to market my law firm, how to market my personal injury firm, how to market my criminal law practice, whatever type of a lawyer that you are. And so with that, you'll get back several different responses, different things that you can keep in mind and consider. Everything from using ChatGPT to create personalized email campaigns, using it to create blog content or social media content, using it, for different webinars, all kinds of options. And you can ask it for as many ideas as you want. It'll keep going. It may get repetitive at some point, but you can keep asking it, give me more. Now, the problem with that is that sometimes ChatGPT does not always think like a lawyer would. So you've got virtual legal clinics, which is one of the options that ChatGPT gave us on our request for helping us market our practice. And it says, offer a free virtual legal clinic to provide basic legal advice and consultations. Now, as the lawyers that you are, I'm sure your spidey senses are tingling. The word legal advice is always something that you want to be wary of because, you don't want your website to be giving out legal advice willy-nilly. You don't want a robot doing that on your behalf without you looking. You don't want some AI doing that on your behalf without you looking. We'll talk more about those considerations later. But so when you see an idea like this, you're like, well, could I use ChatGPT for that? And here's the thing, is that in addition to those lawyerly concerns you're going to have about the idea of an AI giving out legal advice for you, it's against ChatGPT's own rules. So you've got in their terms of service that you cannot use ChatGPT to engage in the unauthorized practice of law, to offer tailored legal advice without a qualified person reviewing that information. So there is some wiggle room there, wordsmithing that you could say, perhaps a lawyer's reviewing it first, or perhaps it's legal information, not legal advice. But at the end of the day, the question is that, you can't take everything ChatGPT says at its own face value. And so we called ChatGPT's bluff, if you will. Can I do it? Can I use ChatGPT for a virtual legal clinic? I thought that I could not use ChatGPT for legal advice. And ChatGPT will admit it's wrong. You're correct. Using ChatGPT to provide direct legal advice is not recommended due to the limitations. Again, remember, this is an LLM. It's that large language model. It's working with a body of data, could be out of date. It's not a person. It's just sophisticated autocomplete. All those things Tim was telling you. Yeah. So there are a lot of reasons that you wouldn't want to. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, and let me sort of jump in. This right now, it is old data. It's from 2021. But also it's not using sort of like legal logic or anything like this. There are listen, ChatGPT for writing a poem, right? Or writing music, no problem. It's creative. Maybe I'll accidentally copy someone else's stuff, but it's at least there's no really wrong answer when you write a poem. But with law, there can be wrong answers. And the accuracy of this stuff, when it comes down to particular questions for law, is not there. be clear, this is not something you could use for like practicing law right now. Maybe there's, some folks like case text might have gone through briefs and maybe they're giving a better cut of briefs to help you write a brief. But even there, you really need to go through as an attorney and look through this stuff. There is no way in hell you could allow this to be sort of a chat bot that would start answering questions on your site. It would not be good. And so, OpenAI and Google have said, we do not want this stuff being used to give legal advice directly to, individuals. Giving, some suggestions and ideas to lawyers, fine. That's okay. You guys are lawyers. You go through it. You go, this is true. This is BS. But that's why they have these rules in place. And this is true with both OpenAI and Google to put these limitations here.
Yeah. And then, of course, here's the thing. If you need even more marketing ideas, right, that's another option. This is what I mentioned earlier about you can tell it to keep giving you more, is that you can ask ChatGPT for additional ideas. You can tell it, I want more marketing ideas. If it stops, you can tell it to continue. It does have a limited memory. I mean, it remembers things you say to it. It will essentially have a conversation with you. But that memory is limited. So it doesn't remember everything. And it certainly doesn't always remember the earlier ideas it gave you. So there might be some repetitive ideas in there. It might tell you social media content once and then social media content twice and then social media content 3 times. But you can keep asking it for more. I mean, if you're just in the ideas gathering phase, then this is a tool that takes a little bit of that brainstorming power off of you and puts it back into the hands of, ChatGPT. Now, another way that you can use this is taglines. So I don't know about you guys, but I know as somebody who works on some of the marketing we do here at Justia, that sometimes brainstorming is the hardest part. I mean, I know we spend a lot of time on it. I'm sure your marketing teams do, or you, if you're engaged in your own marketing, spend a lot of time trying to think about the best way to promote your practice, to build your brand, the best language to use, all of that. And so sometimes you've got that mental block or you've got something that's kind of holding you back from doing that, or you just are out of ideas. ChatGPT can do that for you. And even if you've got your own ideas, it can help streamline the process. So you can say, ChatGPT, give me 5 taglines for a personal injury law firm in Denver. And here it is. It's given us 5 different options that could potentially be taglines for a personal injury law firm in Denver. Now, whether or not you want to lift these taglines and use them in the way that ChatGPT gives them to you is a different discussion. Like Tim said, it's not always correct or accurate. That's less of a concern here. But we do have some additional considerations about, plagiarism and copyright and all those things we'll get into later. But at very minimum, it's there to help give you ideas and be a jumping off point that can help you kind of get to that next phase of where you're trying to go with your marketing, with this tagline, this slogan. And if you need more than 5 ideas, again, you can do it more. So this is another illustration. We would like 20 taglines for a criminal law firm based out of Los Angeles. And you can tell it attributes about your practice, things that are important to you, things you want it to incorporate. So here we said, our practice is aggressive in fighting for justice. We're protecting the constitutional rights of our clients. And so ChatGPT will take those attributes that you've given it about your practice and try to work them into those taglines that you've requested. So it really is sophisticated. It can kind of help you build those blocks of your marketing and branding efforts. Now I'm going to hand this back off to Tim because he's a little bit more technical to get into the SEO side.
All right. So, marketing ideas, great for getting creative ideas. No one's going to argue about using ChatGPT to get ideas, right? It's gone through this whole huge archive of stuff to make an autocomplete. And it, comes through. It's ideas. Looks like a great blog post, right? Something, I'll go to this blog post and read it. And it's like an interactive blog post. You can ask more questions about particular things, particular items. So let's go look at SEO. So on the SEO side, we'll go here, just the same thing. Said, give me a list of SEO ideas, right? Got Denver personal injury law firm, give me some SEO suggestions. And it goes through and it gives me what is more or less a standard set of SEO ideas and suggestions. So nothing super crazy here. It's like if I read a blog post about SEO, these are some good suggestions. It's not always exactly right. And granted, some of the data is older. You can certainly have title tags that are longer than 60 characters. It's what shows up on Google search results, but Google itself, their web liaison folks have said, yeah, you could go longer and you still get some extra credit for the words past 60 characters. It's not an issue there. But and they say it in a way that's more authoritative than it might really be truthful. But the ideas are good. And then you can ask more details about particular ideas if more particular things if you want to go through back and forth. sometimes like, I go through, I get these things and, suggested that I do keyword research at, Ahrefs and Moz and different places like that, Google Keyword Planner. But, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go log into Ahrefs and I got to go do that. And I got to do my studying and stuff. I just wanted a quick hit. Just give me a quick answer. So I said, you do the keyword research. I actually said, please do the keyword. I use please because I'm from the Midwest. I said, please do the keyword research. And there it is. It gave me some good keywords to use. Not bad. I mean, obviously I want more details from doing particular pages of things, but for a personal injury law firm in Denver, it remembered that information. It gave me some good suggestions. Not always perfect, right? So I don't mind. Yeah, dog bite attorney's good. That's pretty good. But pedestrian accident attorney Denver, add in Denver, right? It's missing a little grammar stuff there. So, don't just randomly put these words into your page and think it's going to work. Read it, right? You got to look through it. But this is not bad, right? This is a good set. This is, if like I was to go tag a website, yeah, I'd be using words like this in our title tags and things like that. Next item, let's go take a look. So SEO suggestions were good, and you could go back and forth and you can sort of play with it a bit. Let's look about website content. So here's our step back. So this to me is probably going to be at least from the website SEO standpoint, going to be the thing that we see the most usage of. And the reason is that, you guys are lawyers. You don't always want to write web pages, right? How many times have you got reminders from us saying, hey, write better content, write longer pages, improve your pages, make them better. I mean, do all that stuff. Well, I'm pretty sure, and I'm about to start this in a second, this is going to be the big one that you guys are going to spend time on. And let me walk through the positives and negatives about it and how you can sort of do it. So first, I just, I went in there, first cut. All right, I'm a Denver personal injury lawyer. Write me a web page for my law firm's website on the car accidents, right? Hit return. It actually puts the HTML. If I didn't want the HTML, I could say, please do not provide the HTML, just the text, and it would remove the HTML. Just so you know that. So you don't have to have the HTML here. But here it ran through it, started typing it, it stops. This happens all the time with ChatGPT. It stops. I said, continue. That's what I always just write, and it finishes up. All right, well, there's my text on my page. And this is what the page would look like. It doesn't have any design elements or anything, but it's got H1s, H2s. It's got some good lists. It's not a bad page, right? It's a little bit short. I'd make it a little bit longer, but not too bad. I sort of thought, no, okay, well, I have to improve on it, but not a horrible page. And obviously I need to put some stuff particular to me, being a Denver personal injury lawyer, focused on car accident cases. So it doesn't have your personal stuff in there. So then I said, well, I'd like to write a better page. So longer page, something longer and better on that. So I said, what section should I have for a car accident page? And I just waited, and it said, well, here are the types of sections: header, introduction, types of car accidents, how your law firm can help, compensation, damages, some client testimonials. It's a little bit random in terms of the ordering, and contact info and footer. Okay. I said, well, please give me some more sections I could have on my page. And it gave me some more, right? Common causes, statistics. These are all good things that you can add onto pages. Types of injuries. It's good. Give me another, bunch of stuff. Give me another 10. I said, well, please give me some more. Okay, that's going to give me some more types of vehicles, different things, state-specific laws and regulations, which don't think I'd use it for that. Give me those things right now. But the general stuff's not bad. I want to add a video library. And again, more please, because I want more ideas, because I'm not sort of go. And then it went to 50 and it sort of stopped. And I decided not to say more because I had enough screenshots for the slide. But I went through and it gave me a lot of ideas, which is nice. So I go through. So first I said, just write me a page, but now I said, give me the ideas. And now I'm going to go through, I'm going to put my own page together. All right. So then I say, well, write me a page using these sections: 1, 2, 11, 5, 16, 8, 6, 33, 3, 9, and 10. Right? 10 was the footer, just and 9 was the contact info. So it gets the header down to contact info, footer. I put the sections in that I wanted. And sure enough, it went ahead and it started making it. It's timed out again and hit continue. And continue. And there we are. All right. So it's a lot more text than the first one, right? Because I put more sections in. And here's the page. It's actually 2 pages, so it's a lot longer. Okay, better. It's a better page. Still, I look at this and, obviously sometimes it's bold headers, sometimes it's not. I want more. This needs to be fleshed out more, right? And I would actually go in here and I'd flesh out each section, because this is like a lot of list, which is fine, but it's, not too many paragraphs and stuff. So I went to the first part here, I think the first page of this thing, and I just said, common causes of car accident. Let me flush this one out. Now I could do the same thing for each section. Not a big deal. All right. And I say, for the common causes of car accidents, it knows that this is the section I'm talking about. I don't have to put anything else in there. Please list again with some explanations of each. And it goes through, gets stopped, and then it continues, and then I get the stuff. So I took that from this little part here on that page, right? And it became this. And now I've got, some pretty good text. Now, I got to tell you something, I got to go read this. I got to read this to make sure it's correct. But causes of car accidents, pretty general. And, if you've been on the web, there's a lot of car accident pages with a lot of things about causes of car accidents. This is pretty easy text for ChatGPT to get right, because it's got this huge corpus of car accident web pages. And so this stuff's gonna be pretty good, but you do need to read through to make sure it's correct. So that part's there. I do want to say one thing about web pages, which we brought up in that previous webinar on content, which you should watch. If you haven't seen it, or I think you watch most of it on the YouTube channel as well. You really need to put legal analysis into your pages. And I know that some people say, well, I'm writing towards consumers, they're not lawyers. I don't want to put a statute of limitations, or, I don't need to define, contributory negligence standards or things like that, but you should. And the reason is that you need to make your pages different than others. You know how many car accident pages are going to be made using ChatGPT like a year from now? Like 1 million billion, right? Lawyers going to use this everywhere. Even if you personally are going, not going to use it, I'm not going to do it. I guarantee you there's a lot of people are going to do this. And some are going to proofread it and some aren't. But there's going to be a lot of pages on this. And these pages are going to be very similar because they're basically use ChatGPT to sort of design the pages. If you bring in legal analysis, you will make your page different. So somewhere on this page, you need to bring that in. You need to put in statutes. You need to put in some of the seminal cases and different things like that to really add some stuff, almost like you're writing towards another attorney, and add a section of that onto your page. That makes yours different. So when Google's listing all the stuff, they go, all these pages are the same. I'm just going to choose this guy. The other one's all the same. It doesn't matter. This way, yours is different. So you get a real differential in the Google search results to show up. And that said, you cannot use ChatGPT to do real legal analysis. That you're going to have to do on your own, because this is like the second time. We're going to announce this like 5 times, I think, in this webinar. It is not accurate. It's not accurate because the data's old. It's not accurate because it's random, right? Go ahead, put citations in the cases. We were doing this with a guy in Maryland. The citation is like, it was okay. If you think 3 out of 5 is okay, and 2 of the citations were just gibberish. I don't know what it was. It gets the law wrong the more detailed you get, especially if you go to the state level. We're looking at dram shop liability also from Maryland. It somehow brought in the information auto-completed from a different state. Not good. So the more specific you get, especially on the law stuff, the more you're really going to need to read through it if you use it as a first cut, or just do your own writing. Distracted driving, yeah, it's write a decent description of distracted driving. There's nothing legal about that. Just say, hey, pay attention when you drive. Otherwise, you get a car accident. Dram shop liability, what's this negligence standard in the state of Maryland versus, Delaware or something? Yeah, that it's not going to do very well in that for many reasons. So I don't think that you could just use ChatGPT for your pages. Use it for the basic consumer stuff and do a quick check, because I believe that to really rank well, you need to bring in some real legal analysis. And that's been true with certainly all our clients. Our clients that rank well always do that. So you should do that yourself. So it's not a pure play in terms of a solution, but a lot of people are going to be using this. So, and it's worthwhile to do the basic consumer stuff. I think it's easier to edit than to write many times.
Yeah. No, so that is very true, and I definitely agree with that. Kind of moving on to some other ways that you can continue using ChatGPT. So you've got social media and business profiles. So think of a couple of different things here. Um, One thing to keep in mind is that we're not talking just about social media post content. I mean, you certainly could ask ChatGPT to give you content for a social media post, but that's not the limitation you want to put on yourself here. Here, what you're really looking at, and part of it is that you want to control your namespace online. So if you're familiar with SEO in any way, shape, or form, you've probably heard a lot of things about high quality original content, aka you do not want to create duplicate content across the web. That hurts your chances of ranking. Only one copy of that content is likely to rank, all of that. So one of the things you want to do when you're controlling your namespace is you want to leverage profiles and things like social media, as well as business directories, lawyer directories, Justia's directory, Avo, various business directories, lawyer directories that are out there to help better control your namespace and help people who search for you as a lawyer see information about you, not information from other sources about you. You really want to control that messaging if you can. So ChatGPT can help with that. It's difficult, it's tough, it's hard, however you want to phrase it, to write the same bio over and over and over and not repeat the same things about yourself. ChatGPT can help with that. So when you're trying to fill out those bios on those different profiles, fill out that information about your law firm, you can take your standard bio from like your law firm's website, put it into ChatGPT, and tell it to rewrite this for you 5 different ways. And that's exactly what we did here. We took a lawyer's bio, we put it into ChatGPT, we asked it to rewrite it, and it gave us 5 different versions, all of which essentially say the same thing, have the same message about this lawyer. However, they don't repeat that duplicate content. So then you can use them on those various directory profiles and different platforms to kind of help give yourself a better chance of SEO success. And that's one of the real benefits here, to kind of take some of that heavy lifting off of you. Of course, you still have to reread it. I know we've kind of beat this horse. The idea of, you've got to pay attention, double check, make sure it didn't say something crazy. But for the most part, it can help you do that.
Yeah. And so just sort of following what Marina was saying. So a lot of times this is, like using Yext or Whitespark. And we've, the previous webinar that we had on links, we talked about you could use Yext, you can put up profiles and you can get links back to your website, all these business directories, which is fine. Or you could use Whitespark, but they'll give you sort of logins to individual ones. If you just want links to your website and your concern is, can I rank for, Maryville personal injury lawyer, you could just do the same profile. You could put the same text everywhere. You could use Yext. They'll just repeat it every place. I mean, are you really tied to whether, City Pages is ranking higher than, I don't know, some super pages site? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. You're probably looking just to be in those directories with a profile and have a link back. But if you are trying to control your namespace, so you're trying someone search Mark Hartz up here, and you want to make sure you rank for those or control those pages, putting most of these directories, a lot of the directories, not most of them, but certainly a lot of directories that are out there, business directories, tend to rank pretty well. And you can actually, put these different profiles up and control that namespace. So that's a namespace SEO, not just a link for your website. Link for your website, you can put the same thing everywhere. Use Yext, it's fine. But if you want to control it, use Whitespark. The other thing we see, and we see this all the time, sometimes with our own clients do it, which is not good, but certainly with other folks a lot. They will take their profile on their website and they will put it on Justia, and they'll put it on Super Lawyers, and they'll put it on Avo and all these other sort of lawyer profile sites. Then guess what? It destroys their website's ranking and for your name. And if there's one thing that you want to rank for on your website, it's your name. You cannot duplicate your profile text onto one of these directories like Justia. It's not, you can do it, it'll help us, but it's not going to help you. You've got to have your website rank first for that. That's focused on you, right? And you got all your marketing stuff. You got your phone number there. You're not in another directory and click on this other lawyer right next to you, unless you're Connect Pro or something. But otherwise, you're off to the races. So you certainly use this to go into these other lawyer directories, which are not necessarily tied into Yext or Whitespark or Bright Local or some of the others. But it's basic in a certain way, but I know it's hard to write these things. And maybe you can write one, you can probably write 3 profiles, reword it. Try writing 50 of these, 60 of these. It's crazy. It's hard to do. ChatGPT, write 60 of these, not a problem. You'll be done. Take you 10 minutes. And then you just read through it, you edit it. Now you got 60 different profiles you can put different things on. So this is exactly what these like reputation.com, Reputation Defender, some of these guys do. This is what they do. They write different profiles. This is an easier, faster way to do it. So just wanted to bring that up. And again, don't put your law firm website profile information onto any of these directories, either on the firm level or on your personal level. Use this to rewrite it. All right, a few other things you can do with ChatGPT, which we'll sort of bring up. One, it's pretty good at putting together code. The GPT engine is actually, that's text, right? Code is text, right? Whether it's computer code or schema markup. So, right here, who doesn't want to be the feature snippet, right? And feature snippets, we know with Google, a lot of times those are FAQs, right? A lot of times right here, right? What is the Maryland statute of limitations, right? There's a lot of the feature snippets are coming from questions and answers right now in Google, and they have been for a while. So again, if you watch the previous tech webinar we gave, we said, hey, this is a real important schema attribute that you should be doing on your website, right? Because it gets you these featured snippets. Also, it gets you the people also ask section, right there. And sometimes you get some additional links on just your organic profile. But maybe you don't know how to do schema markup, right? I mean, you hope Google does it. Well, here you just type in the ChatGPT. So I said, please write a FAQ page schema. So you got to know that it's FAQ page. You have to know that, but now you do. So that part's fine. And I put a question in, what is probate, and an answer. And it just gave me back this code. And you can tell it's code because it's got black background and text, right? Like 1988 or something like that. But anyways, you could copy the code and you could put it, you have a JSON file that you can integrate into your website. So very simple, right? Not hard to do. Now, don't know what a JSON file is. You have to do a little bit of search on that, but you could ask ChatGPT. It would tell you what to do and how to edit. But the main thing here I want to point out is it does produce really good code, right? So it's quite good at this stuff. And a lot of programmers are using it as well, both here and the Copilot using GPT-4 on GitHub. All right, one more item that I want to sort of bring up, because we've been doing some stuff with this with our own sort of support, playing around with it, and we've certainly looked at a little bit with law firms as well in terms of chatbots, right? Because there are a lot of people have these, the little, it's not even a chatbot. They have the chat though, right? It's going to engage with someone else, and you're paying so much money for contact. It costs money, and people go, I'd like to not pay that money. I like to, why can't I just put a chatbot up there, right? Do like little Facebook chatbots and things like that. So I asked ChatGPT-4. I said, I'm a law firm website. I want to make a chatbot. I do only want to collect the information they have. I do not want to give legal advice, right? Things like that. And it gave me some suggestions of what to do. All right. Now, the first time I asked this question, which maybe I should have showed the slide, but I didn't. I just said, I would like a chatbot for my law firm website. It gave me some Python code that I could use. So go get an OpenAI key, sign up for it, and then you use that and put this Python code on, focus in a bit. But who knows? It would start answering legal questions and stuff. And I was a little concerned whether I'd be able to train it a bit. But in this case, it actually gave me some of these other platforms that can tie into the OpenAI, GPT backend. And so it gave me Dialogflow that Google has, right? You can use GPT here. You could also use Google's AI stuff, right? It's pretty good. This Rasa one, and the Microsoft Bot framework, which is, Microsoft and OpenAI kind of together, right? I mean, $10 billion. I think you probably have a little bit more than an ownership stake at this point. But these would be different things, and then you could use these sort of platforms to help train it and help limit it as to what it's looking at, right? Try to really bring in your content from your site, but say, I do not want any legal, do not answer any legal question, right? Just try to get their name, the contact information, and try to get what this is about. Basically, the stuff you have people doing in the Philippines or stuff when they're typing back and forth, helping you out with these other services. So I think that, this stuff, we'll know more a bit, and I'm sure this will change, get updated. And we'll certainly let people know what we found out when trying these different, making our own sort of chatbots, both on clients and things like that, just to see what it does. But I think this will be pretty good. And this is the type of stuff, if you can put the right limitations on it, that it'll turn out to be quite good. It'll be another sort of big win for folks using the ChatGPT or using the GPT for backend or 5 or 6, whatever. I'm sure the features could even be better than now. So I think something to note. This is all can tie in, and it'll just be like ChatGPT, but it'll only try to collect information and keep coming back to the core questions the core information you want to collect. Okay, let me hand back to Marina.
Yeah, nope. And those are all good things. So kind of moving right on through here to our next thing is the issues with ChatGPT. Now, I know that we've kind of touched on some of this, so we're going to just dive right in. One of those things to keep in mind here, again, and I will probably repeat myself and say this again and belabor the point, is that we're not talking about the issues with using it for your practice, in that creating documents for your client, creating pleadings, legal research. That's a whole other host of issues, and these are just the tip of the iceberg when you're talking about that. These issues are, again, even with ChatGPT for creating things like marketing content, which is what we're focused on here. So the first kind of thing to keep in mind there is accuracy. We've talked about it before. ChatGPT is not a person. It's working with a body of knowledge that can become dated. It is working like sophisticated autocomplete, and it is looking for the next most likely words to be plugged in. So, for instance, it does not understand the legal system. It does not understand legal nuance. It doesn't understand shared federalism. It doesn't understand state code versus a Supreme Court decision. Those are all things that ChatGPT does not grasp. And the more specific you get into state law, the less accurate it is. Tim touched on that earlier too. So as an example for you here, as you all likely know that, back in 2015, the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage nationwide through the Obergefell decision. So we asked ChatGPT, is same-sex marriage legal in Mississippi? And it came back initially and said, no, same-sex marriage is not legal in Mississippi. It recognized that the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage, but then said that Mississippi had not repealed its ban, and therefore it was still not legal in Mississippi. Now, that's ChatGPT not quite understanding that legal nuance, right? And the other issue here is that it is convincingly incorrect, right? It says it with authority. So if you aren't going through and catching those issues and saying, wait, no, this is wrong, I as a lawyer know that this is the actual answer, you're putting yourself at risk for putting inaccurate content out there, which is not what you want to do. The same thing is it's not always giving the same answers. So someone might get the right answer to this same question. We asked ChatGPT again, is same-sex marriage legal in Mississippi? This time it knew. It came back and said, yes, same-sex marriage is legal in Mississippi, and said it became legal in June 2015 when Obergefell came down. So again, you're really dealing with a body of information that doesn't reason the same way you do and that doesn't understand the law the way you do. Similarly, and this is not a legal question, but just general inaccuracy, I, as a lawyer, am not great at math. And the thing is that while you guys might be great at math, ChatGPT is not. That said, though, you certainly can count, and ChatGPT struggles with even that. So as an example, we asked ChatGPT who was older when they were elected president, Grover Cleveland or George W. Bush. Now, it comes back in and says Grover Cleveland was older when he was elected president. He was 47, goes back through and says George Bush was 54. Now, we know that 47 is not older than 54. So we asked it, ChatGPT, is 47 larger than 54? It said, no, 47 is not larger than 54. So we said, okay, well then why did you tell us Grover Cleveland was older than George W. Bush? And it apologizes for its mistake and goes back through that, answering with a different response now that we've corrected it. But the thing to keep in mind here is that ChatGPT convincingly in its initial statement said, Grover Cleveland is older. And it likely is looking at that year that Grover Cleveland got elected, likely looking at history. Grover Cleveland will always be older than George W. Bush based on when they were born. Who knows how it was reasoning? But the output it gave was incorrect in that initial instance. And so that's an example of those accuracy issues and how lawyers need to be paying attention to what it's giving back and checking it for accuracy.
Yeah, and just to reiterate this, it knew how old each of these folks were when they were first elected president. It knew the numbers, right? But it still stated, that Grover Cleveland was older. I mean, it's just with pure authority here. One thing I will note, though, is that when it said Grover Cleveland was older when he was first elected president, George W. Bush, when it's typing that out, it doesn't really know what's going to type next. So it did, if it had said Grover Cleveland was older when first elected president George W. Bush after giving those other two items, then you would assume, well, it knew that the guy was 47 and knew the guy was 54. But it's made the statement before it actually wrote, though. So it's just auto-completing. It's just, yeah, Grover Cleveland, he was born 1800s and the other guy was born in 1900s. Obviously, he's older. So it's without sort of thinking it through. So again, this is autocomplete. It's pretty good because got a lot of stuff you're looking through, got a lot of statistical models and things like that. But you never know. Maybe sometimes the randomization, it'll be yes, and the other random will be no, and every once in a while it says no, and that's like the exact opposite. So you got to realize that part, right? This is just the way these models work. And Wolfram Alpha will help on math and things like that when you put that you add that plugin. But this just gives you an overall sense. For legal information, repeat it one more time, you really need to go through it. That you just have, especially the more focus is this, when it's focusing on particular state, particular statutes. Good at general stuff, the more focused, not as good. Old data, also, it's autocomplete reasoning. It's not reasoning, right? It's autocomplete.
Yep. That's all very accurate. And so the next thing to keep in mind or a watch out for, as my law school professor would have said, a consideration, a concern, whatever phrase you want to use, is copyright and authorship. So there's kind of the threshold question, if you will, as to whether or not output from ChatGPT can even be copyrighted. This is new, it's evolving. In my opinion, who knows, if you pay attention to intellectual property law, there is some discussion that goes on about this concept in art, right? And the idea of computer generated art or AI generated art. And can you copyright AI generated art? And in the US, at least, the question of human authorship comes up and the computer not being a human, and that playing into the fact that sometimes you cannot copyright this computer generated art. And so here, reasoning by analogy, there's a question as to whether or not the output would even be subject to copyright laws. Not something that I know the answer to, and I am certainly not an intellectual property expert, but a conversation that is being had. Now, assuming that the content can indeed be copyrighted that ChatGPT puts out, OpenAI will give you the copyright to it. Their terms of service says, we are assigning you all of our rights in the output from ChatGPT. So, assuming that it can be copyrighted, when you get that blog post, when you get that tagline, when you get that slogan, whatever it may be from ChatGPT, from OpenAI's end, it's okay, go ahead and use it. But that also assumes that it does not already infringe on someone else's copyright. And so you've got to keep in mind that what it's doing here is it's coming through and it's pulling data from other sources, and it may be giving you something that is the same as or very similar to something that has already been put out there by someone else. And the shorter the question is you give it, or the shorter the prompt, the shorter the response, the more likely it is that you're going to get an output that somebody else has already put in. You don't want to create duplicate content. That's a separate question that Tim's getting into. But, there's the idea of that copyright and that plagiarism that plays into all of this. And an example of that is going back to that art. So you've got Stable Diffusion. It's, an AI art generator. And so in message boards in 2022, late 2022, November, you've got people posting like, hey, why is my AI generated art showing me the Getty Images logo? And, people are wondering about this. Well, sure enough, now we've got Getty Images suing creators of the art tool Stable Diffusion because it scraped its content. So basically, it took a bunch of images from the Getty image site and it's trying to rework them and use them in different ways. But at the end of the day, it's still pulling Getty Images. I mean, we can see the logo there. It might be a little messed up, but it's there. So this is a question that is playing out in court right now. Similarly, you've got, the question playing out with code. And so Tim has a little bit more insight here, but again, the conversation's being had.
Yeah, so this is going to probably tie a little bit more to what we're seeing right now with copying among web content or books or different things like that. So if you use GitHub, there's Copilot that's there that uses OpenAI that helps you write code faster, right? It's basically the same thing. It's remember how we just saw the schema markup work pretty well? Well, the same thing works for code. I mean, hard to believe, but a lot of code is repetitive, right? You're writing the same sort of functions and things. So you can really get through a lot just by using the OpenAI stuff. It goes pretty quick. Now, to do that though, they actually went out and got a bunch of code, right? They had huge archives of code. They went and grabbed the code, they put it into the OpenAI or the GPT system. They sat there and said, well, here's our code. We're going to autocomplete on code. And so it's all right. They went ahead and did that. They didn't really ask permissions. They said it's fair use, right? Yeah, we're like Google, right? We're just indexing stuff. Well, they're getting sued. So this is GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft and OpenAI. They're getting sued right now by people who actually wrote the code. They're known as DOEs, 1 through 3 or something, but they are real people. And it's not obvious right now, and this is be a really important case as far as how the web stuff goes. It's not obvious right now whether this is fair use, because you're actually taking code that other programmers made. Might be like you guys, you write your blog posts, right? You sit there, you write your blog posts and do that, and then they make it, and someone else just gets an automatic blog post, kind of like we saw earlier with ideas for SEO, right? That could be a blog post. That's probably done by Conrad over at Mockingbird, right? Or Geo, Attorney Sync, and all of a sudden it's showing up on Justia. It doesn't seem fair. They went ahead and did it. On coding, it's the same thing, right? You got all these guys, they write the code, and all of a sudden you're doing autocomplete stuff, and now maybe you're changing the whole market for coders. Now you don't need as many programmers, right? You got some programmers I don't even think know how to program. They just use the autocomplete to actually make their own program stuff. But this is something that you get, at least with Google, when they index your content. All right. Well, they feature and they give you a link back to your website. All right. You can do that. If I want to take a page out of Google, I could take a page out of Google, right? Do it pretty quick. They got webmaster tools. I can remove it. I have no idea how to remove stuff out of sort of the archive of data that OpenAI is using. Now, I could have blocked the common crawl. That's one of the ways they're getting it. They're also getting some stuff through Reddit links and things like that. But all right, let's say they already called me. Now I want it out. I don't want this super great Justia blog post being used by other people. I want to take it out of, I have no idea how to do it. Maybe there's a way, maybe there's not right now. I searched online, I couldn't find it. It's certainly not easy. Or you have right to be forgotten, right? You got the folks in Europe where, US privacy. I mean, come on, that's a little bit lip service here, but in Europe, they actually take it seriously. And all of a sudden, you've gone through and you've had all this stuff removed online because of your right to be forgotten. And next thing you know is that it's showing up as an autocomplete on ChatGPT. So there's a lot of issues that go on here, but this Copilot lawsuit, that's a big one, because depending on how that goes, it's going to have a big influence in terms of how, let's see if I'm moving my mouse or something here, in terms of how it's going to be seen for other web content and using these large language models. Okay. Take over, Marina. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you're all good. So kind of moving into the next thing, and this is related to that copyright and authorship, is the idea of plagiarism. And, it comes back into the idea that duplicate or similarity of content. So the output, ChatGPT blatantly says in the terms of service, the output may not be unique across all users. It may generate the same output or similar output for other people. And so we said this a moment ago, but the shorter the responses, the more likely it is this is going to happen. So again, it's something to be aware of in that concept of, you don't know for sure that you are getting content that other people are not getting. Now you can edit it, and the more you edit it and the more you make it your own, the less likely that this is going to be an issue for you. But it's another illustration and a consideration to keep in mind that you probably should not be just wholesale copy and pasting content from these AI generators. If you want to check and see if somebody else has already used that content or put it out there online, you can run it through Copyscape. That assumes, again, that it's already out there and that somebody isn't getting the same response, after you or at the same time as you. But that is a tool that you can use to kind of check in on that and see. And then, of course, we can't talk about considerations for lawyers and using something new without touching on ethics. And so this is a question of, what is permissible? You've got the ABA model rules that have Rule 7.1, communications concerning a lawyer's service. And this is not, again, a ethical question we're touching on with the idea of your practice. If you do a quick Google search, you will see lots of articles about the ethics of using AI for your practice related documents. This is solely thinking about your marketing. But even there is still some issue with the legal profession is notoriously slow to adapt. We don't like change. I don't like change. The profession doesn't like change. And so it takes it time to catch up, if you will. And so 10 years ago, people were having this conversation about Rule 7.1 and misrepresentations in the context of clients and blog posts. And was having a ghost written blog post put out onto your website as your own material some sort of misrepresentation to client? Now, my understanding is that's a jurisdictional issue. Some places it's fine, some places it's a little bit more questionable. And this will likely end up being a jurisdictional issue too. Is this AI content somehow running afoul of your ethical obligations? I don't know the answer. The more you edit it, the more you make it your own, the more likely you are to be in clear water. But again, it's something to be aware of and pay attention to how that's developing in your jurisdiction. And then you've got privacy concerns. So if your threshold kind of thought is, well, if I was going to put it on my website anyway, surely it's fine to put into ChatGPT. I mean, that is one way to approach the issue, but you've also got the privacy nightmare that is being created here. You don't necessarily know all of the ways that data is going to be used. It's being put into the system, it's learning, it might be showing up in other people's suggestions, prompts. And so you've got a couple of interrelated issues here. And one is in the privacy and how that data is being used. It could be somebody else's autocomplete sentence. Tim touched on this a minute ago. In the EU, you've got the right to be forgotten. How does that play into what's happening with ChatGPT? California has a little bit more stringent privacy laws than other places in the United States. And are they going to have issues with data that is basically getting stored in these models and then spit back out into your output? The other thing is that you've got this privacy policy out here, and OpenAI can use data you produce using ChatGPT. So your prompts and responses, OpenAI can use that. How they're using that, we don't know. Likely to train their model or work on the next big thing, but their policies say that they can use it. So that's out there too. And then, of course, it's hit the news that there's been a bug in ChatGPT, and OpenAI's admitted the bug leaked your user data, that you could see other users' prompts. This bug allowed people to see other users' payment information, their emails. So there's a lot out there that you should just be aware of in the privacy realm that we don't know all the answers to yet when it comes to OpenAI and ChatGPT.
And I'll just say, for overall stuff, I don't think OpenAI and stuff, I don't think they've thought a lot about the privacy issues too much, right? I think there's lots of issues everywhere. Right. But again, if you're using ChatGPT, you're giving them rights to actually use the content you're submitting. If you're using the API, you'd have to look at whoever service you're using the API. It's not necessarily sharing the information. So I'm not sure Jasper or Case Text or people that are using the API are actually sharing the information. They don't have to. It's not a requirement. But ChatGPT, you are. So think about that a little bit when you put information in, if you don't want it being seen by their index. But again, that's sort of the beginning stages of it. All right, let me just go through this last part will be pretty quick. Let's go through Google rankings and AI content. So, there's last summer there was a bunch of stuff as Google decided to go after AI content. Everybody was saying, well, okay, it looks like Google's made an update and they don't want to have content written by non-people, I guess is the way to put it. So before we start there, I want to do one thing beforehand. Just a reminder, what Google cares about for legal content is the quality and correctness of it. So it's a your money or your life subject area, right? Law, medicine, financial advice. These are the ones that Google, in terms of the quality, are the most concerned about. You're in that group. So, if you're writing about tax and you leave the stuff that's older, you better correct it, or at least make sure there's something that indicates this was the tax for this particular year. It's not the current tax code. There's certain areas like that. So it's got to be right and it's got to be good. Much more so for law than other areas. Not a big deal. You're writing, think about how to play guitar or something. No big deal. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're doing law stuff, it better be pretty good. So that's the key thing. Beneficial purpose with the extra E, the EE there. Again, we covered this previously in a different webinar on content, but the main thing here is it has to be good. The main reason folks thought that Google was after AI content is because they did this helpful content update back in August. And in this update, they put this statement here. They wanted to make search to make it easier for people to find helpful content made by and for people. Not for people, but made by and for people. So people saw that and go, my goodness, I use, I'm using OpenAI. I'm using, GPT-3. I've been using that for my stuff. I use the Jasper stuff. I've been writing content. This might not be good, right? They seem to be after the AI stuff. And you were sort of going, what's going on there? And if you sort of dug into one of the reasons is they want to make sure they don't want to rank, unoriginal, low quality content. They want original, high quality content, which, every webinar we've ever had has mentioned that. So, part of it was the feeling that maybe AI content's lower quality, right? Or unoriginal. In many ways it is, as we showed. It might give the same answer to the same people, certainly the same ideas to people. Something to note. You need to break it down and flesh it out more to just use the generic answer from ChatGPT or other AIs. All right, good news. Well, good news if you're using AI. There was an update, official update. There was previous tweets that they were okay with AI content, but there was official, AI content guidance on this. And they basically said, look, we want the best content. We're not going to worry where it comes from. So don't worry about the AI stuff. It doesn't matter. As long as it's the best content and it's helping people, we don't care how it's produced. So this is Google officially giving you the green light to use AI, and they're not going to punish you for it. And they have some FAQs on it. They say, they're not going to punish you, not going to reward you for using it. But if it makes it better, then you'll get rewarded because it's better, right? Should you use it? Well, is it helpful to you? Yeah, if it's helpful and makes it better. Well, but here's the key thing. You got to make sure it's original, right? And again, just in terms of Google search results, I mentioned this earlier, add some legal analysis to the bottom of your content pages, right? To your car accident page, your truck accident page. Add some stuff, some statutes, cite some cases. It makes it original. Everyone's going to be using ChatGPT or Bard or whatever to write content for their site. Even if it's going to happen. We're still going to have a lot of websites with like 2,000 pages of content using this stuff. I can see it already. But make sure yours is original, because a lot of these pages are going to be exactly the same or so similar. It's not going to be that different. And do you need to disclose it? They say you shouldn't mention the AI. You shouldn't mention ChatGPT as your author. You shouldn't do that. They said don't do that. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. But they said you might, if it helps the user to tell them that they're using AI, you might want to mention it to them, right? It's a personal decision, I think. My guess is that most people probably won't say it, but if you want to, they say that if it's helpful, how it's created, then you should mention it. There might be legal ethics rules where you have to do it in some states, but again, that state by state. I'll leave that to you and your ethics panel on that. All right. The other thing about Google and AI content, of course, they came out with Bard and they do the marketing on Bard, and it says, hey, use it to outline your blog post. They're basically telling you, use this to make blog posts. All right. That's how I took this statement on their marketing. Google saying, you're going to outline a blog post, use us, right? And probably, maybe like in a month or two. You can try it out. You should try it out. You should sign up for the wait list and try it out. It's not the best yet, but it'll be a lot better. All right. So, but this is them telling you, use it. So with that, AI is okay with Google. Now, if you want to, if you're worried about it, though, you say, well, I'm worried that they'll detect it. Maybe later on, when 90% of the content is AI content, Google suddenly goes, you know what? Like they do on many things, we've changed our mind. We're really going to reward people that write it themselves. And there's two ways. You could just start misspelling words, use bad grammar. That always passes AI test. But you might be worried about that. If you want to check, or you're a professor, right? So we talked to some professors, law professors we do stuff with. And we said, how do you stop students from cheating, right? Or using AI to help answer their questions. Maybe you don't want to give them as much credit. I don't know if it's cheating or not. Depends what the rules were when you took the test or the paper. And they said, well, we use this page, this Zero GPT. So it had some Google ads, which I sort of hit here. It's okay, I guess. But if you put the text in here, this is pretty good at detecting at least ChatGPT text. You got to put quite a bit in. If you just put a paragraph in, it won't quite get it right. But if I've taken some ChatGPT text, 98% AI probability, right? I can add some mess up. I can change the grammar, use passive tense, misspell some words. it falls. But so there's ways to play with it. But this is a good place to check, zerogpt.com, if you just want to check it out. And being used by professors at really good law schools right now to catch their students not producing their own work. Again, core thing here, your money or your life. That is the key thing about law. It has to be really, really good. The other thing with AI content, you got to make it unique, which means you're going to need to add some legal analysis, or at least that's the easiest way to do it, and add some code in different sections like that, because that requires effort and something that you can't use these AI tools for, because the AI tools are not accurate, right? Now, who knows what answer they're going to give you? Yes today, no tomorrow. It's not, it's not accurate. So do that. That's your own stuff. Then you'll be ranking higher. But the other, the stuff for consumers, most of it, how car accidents are caused, that part's pretty good. It's not too bad on the general stuff. Okay, last quick thing here.
The big question.
So, yeah, Google
so
Bard.
The big question is who? Google Bard or Bing and ChatGPT?
What's going to happen between Google and Microsoft? Because first of all, Microsoft's put a lot of money into OpenAI. I know it's not the same company, but kind of working together. What do we think will happen between Google and Microsoft? So my overall take is that, they got a big jump on with the OpenAI and ChatGPT. They're adding new stuff every day. There's some other stuff that got mentioned to me from Dan, one of our programmers, that he told me, don't look at this right now. You got to do a presentation, but it was brand new for like getting current pages and stuff like that. And they're adding in the, trying to make this sort of a platform with all the plugins and things like that. So they have a jump. Google, though, is really good. It's been using AI for their search results, and they're really good at text. So Google is really good at indexing all the web. Oh, by the way, they also have all the books, right? Google Books, especially on the academic side. You have academic access. You have the books. Now, they have Google Scholar. I don't know if you've used that. There's case law, right? There's good case laws there. And they also have lots of scholarly articles and things like that. And Google's really good at indexing stuff, and Google's really good at figuring out what's good and what's bad. So they're really good at that. Microsoft is, working through the OpenAI guys. They got Bing, which Bing's okay. It's not Google though. I mean, if you use both, even now it's not Google. So they're okay at indexing. Maybe they'll put more effort at it, but they haven't done as much as Google in terms of how to deal with text and different things like that. So I would conclude that from the model standpoint, anyone can get this model. You can get the models right now. You can run that. You'd have to have a lot of processing power. So a lot of instances, but the models, that's not too hard. Maybe get models to train your model and things like that. That's fine. Just programming stuff. Data, I think Google will win on the data because they have all the stuff. On the other hand, from what I've heard, is that any data that can be indexed will probably be indexed within the next 2 to 5 years, in which case you have all the data indexed. And, Microsoft can do that. Microsoft's got a lot of money on stuff. They could certainly do if they decide to focus on it. So maybe right now they're using OpenAI for that. But I don't know. So you have to figure that part out. Google also has lots of users, a lot more users than Bing has, at least from a web part in terms of numbers. What Microsoft has, though, is they have the users that are in business. Everybody uses Microsoft Office products. So they have a different set of users. And one of the things I think you're going to see on this is that for Microsoft, using this OpenAI stuff and using the LLM models, is really going to tie into their products on sort of the Microsoft Office suite. While with Google, they've got Google Workspace, which we all use, but it's not, it's a little bit different. It's not quite the same, not the same level of users. There'll be privacy issues there. I don't think that using Microsoft products is going to allow them to use your information. So I think you're not going to be able to use it in terms of doing stuff. On the other hand, Google, with their search, they'll be able to grab all types of stuff, and they have just a larger user base. I think the only one that might be close would be Facebook or Meta, which is also working on this stuff. So we'll see where it goes. I still, forget about Bard today. All right, Bard today. All right, we all get it. All right, just released, not, use the ChatGPT Plus if you're making stuff right now, but try out Bard. But who knows where we are in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. I think it'll be a lot different world. So I would think that Google can do a better job just because they have a head start on the core backend, which is your processing and text and knowing all this stuff. But I don't know for sure. That would be, I always bet on Google because they're all around here. But we'll see where that sort of goes on that part. And then again, outside Microsoft, I think, Facebook will enter, or Meta will enter on that part. Amazon will probably enter with different services, and Apple will do their own thing, but it'll be really good. Otherwise, they won't release it. They'll work in the Siri and Siri chat. So that's my overall take.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tim. And I think, you've got these URLs there for everybody to kind of chat down. Did you have anything else to say about those?
Sign up for all of them. Right. And sign up for the ChatGPT Plus. I know it's $20 a month. Guess what? I don't even think they'll let you on right away. You have to wait a little bit. Just sign up for it. Just do it. Regardless of how you feel about this, it's going to happen and it's going to be everywhere. It's inevitable. So I haven't seen like this sort of change really since, in terms of speed, since Alta Vista came out. I don't think Google didn't even come out this fast in terms of stuff. Like when Alta Vista, everybody switched to Alta Vista from Excite and things like that, and InfoSeek. That was a long time ago, but this is moving and it's changing every week. So just sign up for every single one of these. Use them all. You'll probably end up using ChatGPT the most right now, but Bard maybe in 3-6 months you'll switch to that, and there'll be something new every week. This is March. What are we here? March 30th. This is like a time capsule. The most of the stuff we discussed here, 6 months from now, we have to do another webinar. It's just gonna go, well, come on. It's ChatGPT 6 and it's all different. So anyways, I would sign up for every single one. That's the big thing I would say.
Awesome.
Just a couple of questions. Of course, we're over time, so we'll, see where it goes. But the first question that we have is there a limit on the number of questions you can ask with ChatGPT 4 if you have a Plus subscription?
Yeah, that's 25 questions or something like that for 3 hours. So it's limited. They'll probably expand the limit again, but it's just because they're capacity constrained. It used to be, a couple hundred when it was first opened up, but it's slowly gone down. What I would suggest, though, you could use it for the stuff that you really care about. Use the GPT-4. If it's stuff that just like getting ideas and stuff, as long as you're willing to ask more and more questions, 3.5 is not bad for that type of stuff. It's just not for your end product. Don't use 3.5 for your end product, but for ideas, questions, taglines, you might have to ask twice or 3 times, but it's okay. It's not bad. So just pick and choose what you use it for. But otherwise, you have so many questions per 3 hours, and then you got to wait for another 3 hours, and so it is for now.
All right. Great. And the next question, and most likely the last one that we're going to have time for today, is this ChatGPT or Bard designed to eventually replace Google searches?
I'll say I don't think it's going to completely replace it. I think it's going to change the way we use it. I think Tim probably has some insight there too, but that would be my kind of gut reaction. Is it's going to change how we search, not necessarily replace search.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is going to start tying into the Office product. So even the folks that's, sort of mentioned they didn't want to necessarily try it, they'll wake up one day and it'll be tied into their word processor. It just will be part of it. I don't think it's replaced search. It's sort of like fancy featured snippets, right? You sort of do it and it gives you the answer. And then you don't necessarily have to go to the web page. You can just read the answer. So it's more like rewriting. If you want to write a letter to somebody, you want to do different things. It's more of like a tool than a search replacement. The only thing that's somewhat similar is it's sort of giving you answers to your questions that you might think of as Google, but you do Google searches sometimes you get like a variety. So I wouldn't expect it to replace search. I do think Google has an issue though. If they made theirs too good, how does it impact their revenue? I don't think they've figured that out yet. Which is probably the only thing that's really held them back from doing this, a few years ago. So we'll see where it goes, but I do not think it's going to replace search. Search does a lot more stuff than just answer questions. There's a lot more things that they're involved with them.
All right, that's great. So yeah, that is the last question that we have time for today. So I'll go ahead and toss this back over to Marina.
We do still want your feedback. So in a few moments, this presentation will end. There will be a survey that will pop up. If you could give us your feedback on today's presentation, we would really appreciate it. We'll also email you a link to that survey to check out. And then we look forward to having you. Our next presentation will be in April. It will be about legal marketing. We're going to have a great lawyer here, David Wolf, who is fantastic at legal marketing and shares a lot of strategies with other lawyers. So you can go ahead and register for that one too in your Connect dashboard at connect.justia.com. And we'll see you guys in a few weeks.